What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I guess we have to talk about some marketing trouble for Xbox. Now, this has long been like a conspiracy theory, I think. I think that's actually pretty fair to say out loud. And today, we got official answers from official people inside of there, and it really does seem like they don't have, well, they admit they don't have the marketing that PlayStation has, but they also say that they have trouble getting marketing kind of in the first place. So this is, by the way, this is not coming at it from like a console warrior or like Xbox bad, PlayStation good. I'm simply talking about there's been a lot of talk. I've talked about it, leading into some of these bigger Xbox games over the last year. And you think, by the way, there's a lot of them still coming out, even this year, going into next year. Indiana Jones, Avowed, etc. Are we going to see marketing for it? Well, the last time was for Hellblade, and no matter your opinion on Hellblade, right? Like, I did a full review. You could find my opinion there, but it doesn't really matter what you think about it. It matters, are you going to talk about it? Like, it's a product from you. It's a product that you probably want to, like, do okay. Are you going to speak about it? And the marketing was largely non-existent. It did come and then it kind of went. So, they did an okay job, I would say, right at the end, like the last like week and a half. But largely it was pretty bad. And there was a lot of talk of like, why aren't you doing anything? And, that's been a thing that's followed Xbox for a while. So let's talk about today's news. And this comes from Tom Warren. Xbox's marketing boss in EMEA admits Sony is outspending Microsoft in PlayStation marketing. And if you read the actual quote here, Sony's PlayStation is the brand's biggest competitor in the console market, and regrettably, they outspend us, Flat says. They're blessed with marketing funds that we're just not able to enjoy, but that's totally fine. We adopt what I would call a more fiscally responsible approach to media investments. While Microsoft's Xbox started life following the traditional console business model, a core element of its strategy now comes in its subscription service, Game Pass, which offers a wide selection of games to download across its Xbox consoles, PC, and other platforms. We're not blessed with huge media budgets, so we have to be quite scrappy, really, and quite tenacious to fight for funds that would probably go somewhere else, he tells Marketing Week. Okay, we're going to step into the console wars just for like 1 second because I'm going to take some shots here. They are worth so much. And they're coming at this like they're the scrappy underdog. Like when you are worth as much as Microsoft, and now there's a little intricacy there, right? Like we'll talk about that because it feels like Microsoft doesn't give them it, okay? But when Microsoft has so much money, and even like when you're speaking about this stuff, I feel like you should kind of be careful because when you use the words like blessed and you look at Microsoft to Sony, let's not even do PlayStation to Xbox, Microsoft to Sony, and you say that Sony or PlayStation is blessed with funds, you've got to be joking, right? Because the worth of these two are not even comparable. They are on different stratospheres. And that is, depending on how you look at it, when you look at it, it could be a very big disadvantage to PlayStation. In fact, when Microsoft goes out there and buys all these companies up, right, for tens and tens and tens, $70+ billion, PlayStation couldn't even do a fraction of that, right? They cap out at like $1 or $2 billion. I think Bungie, right? But like if they want to do a $5 to $10 billion purchase, they have to move heaven and earth, whereas Microsoft can do that like every other Tuesday, right? So like, let me just make that very clear that and it's not necessarily, because again, I know how people think, it's not necessarily me like saying, oh, I have to come to poor Sony's defense. It's just priceless that a company, an executive talks like this where like, do you really think you're the underdog? Like maybe Xbox is the underdog, but like in terms of money, you've got to be joking. And by the way, that's just kind of value. That's just value. You're saying, well, they have all this funds to do marketing and we don't have these funds to do marketing. Well, why? And also, I mentioned the buying things. Like, again, you're going to tell me, and this is why it looks bad. Actually, it's another reason why it looks bad. When you go out as Xbox and you purchase Bethesda, which, a little while ago, but you do Bethesda, big purchase, Blizzard and Activision. When you do those three purchases, right, and then you tell me you can't market Hellblade 2 because you don't get the funds to market Hellblade 2, but you can just go off and buy Activision Blizzard for $70+ billion, that has to be some sort of cruel joke, right? This, to me, okay, now that's probably like where the shots, I would say, stop being taken. I think it's got to be a Microsoft problem, right? So, like, a couple things can be said. Xbox does have a marketing issue. Like it's been a conspiracy. It's been something that we've said. It's gotten pushed. Well, not necessarily something we've said. Like for me, I've always wondered, and I think a lot of people have wondered. You know what I mean? I don't think anything's been definitive, but I think we know the answer now, and we can say it without, again, console warriors, back and forth going at it. It very much seems like Microsoft doesn't give Xbox that budget. And we've seen examples, I think, recently of Microsoft holding back, kind of on Xbox, right? A lot of these changes that we're seeing with the games coming to PlayStation, and we've talked about as many of these things as possible on this channel, every time there's always kind of that rumor that, hey, Microsoft, because Microsoft kind of gave them the allowance, right? Think of it like that, right? Microsoft gives them the allowance to buy Activision Blizzard. Maybe Phil Spencer had to pitch it and talk about how he's going to get that money back. When the money is not coming back as quickly as Microsoft wants, they pull the leash a little closer, right? And they say, hey, we let the leash go a little bit, but not anymore. We want that money back. Figure it out. Raise prices, change Game Pass, bring games to PlayStation so they sell more. I don't care what you do, but we got to get that money back, right? That's been the conspiracy, I think, this whole time, and I feel like there's been enough signs that that is probably true, and then you hear something like this. If you don't get the marketing budget, who am I supposed to blame? Me, as just an onlooker, who are you supposed to blame for that? I'm sure you could blame a couple people, but, it's got to be, I imagine, Microsoft, right? Or maybe whoever's in charge of, allocating these funds. They decide that they're allowed to buy Activision Blizzard a year ago, 2 years ago, but then now they can't market things, or they don't have the marketing budget of PlayStation. Now, you could say, well, maybe it's for things, because I saw people say, outside of the U.S., and we know that, right? Xbox struggles in select markets, and there's rumors that Xbox is going to pull consoles entirely from certain regions and not even sell consoles anymore, and all this stuff. Does marketing go into that? I'm sure. So maybe the marketing budget also applies to that. But I think we've seen enough to make the call that they don't market their games enough either. I very much believe that, they're always at shows doing the Game Pass ads. That's one thing. You know what I mean? You look at a Jeff Keighley event, you will see no less than 5 Game Pass ads to break up the show, right? It's always Xbox. It's mainly Xbox. But what don't you see often? Well, Flintlock is a game that's, exclusively on Game Pass. Now it's a small game, right? There's 5 people playing it on Steam. It peaked at 200, whatever it is. We were talking about a game that I don't think is performing well, but it's a small game. But regardless of the performance right now, was there enough for it? Is there going to be enough for Stalker 2, a game that the developers had to also move heaven and earth to get that game even to come out due to their circumstances? Are we going to see enough of that where that succeeds? What about Avowed? Avowed I actually get pretty worried about, because Avowed is a game that I think is going to be very solid, but it's not as flashy, it's not as big as a Starfield, but I think it could be better. And then it's are you going to market that game? Or are you just going to let that game kind of come out? Indiana Jones, you have to market Indiana Jones, right? The name itself probably does a little for you, but you have to have ads for it, right? But you look back to Hellblade, and you look back to, even games before Hellblade, it's not there. It's not there compared to, I guess, to PlayStation, compared to Nintendo, compared to whatever, and that's got to be fixed. So I don't know who's in charge of this kind of thing, but I think you can definitively say they have a marketing issue, not because they don't spend as much as PlayStation. That part specifically, I think, taking shots at PlayStation. The rest, trying to make people believe that Xbox is the scrappy underdog in terms of and that. See, that's the thing. Xbox is the scrappy underdog because of the console sales and where they are in the market, right? But they're not the scrappy underdog when it comes to money. You have that is a sick, cruel joke. That's not. It's more insulting because you know what I mean. It's the same thing of a rich celebrity pretending they're one of the people, right? They live an everyday life. It's you people are pathetic, not because you are who you are, but because you're trying to pretend you're something you're not. Just own up to what you are, and then just kind of maybe leave us alone or whatever. But you know what? I get that same kind of sense when a celebrity does that stuff. It's you can be rich, you can be a celebrity, you can be rich and powerful and star in movies. Cool, good for you. I like watching that stuff. But you don't pretend you're somebody like us. And it's the same thing here. You can't pretend you're this come from behind champion who has to go literally to the dump to scavenge for a couple pennies to pay for advertising. It's no, maybe you should just directly call it out. And I know that would get you in probably a lot of trouble, so I get that's kind of unrealistic. But if you're gonna pretend you're just kind kind of scrapping for cash here on the side so you can market avowed. Well, maybe, maybe you should just say it out loud. You just kind of admitted to us, right? Is there's an actual problem there, but it's not money. It's the allocation of money. It's how you spent the money that's the problem. It's not the money, because you have infinitely more money than PlayStation. Like, PlayStation is absolutely, in terms of just those two, and in terms of spending power, PlayStation is at a disadvantage like 100 times over, right? And it's not to say, oh, poor PlayStation, like, oh, we should feel so bad for them. I don't really care. They both have a business to run. They both have to try to make it successful. Go at it. I don't care who wins. I don't care what happens necessarily, right? So it's like, that's kind of my opinion on it. But don't pretend like you're trying to, pick pennies up off the side of the road. Like, you have and then you throw PlayStation in there, and it's like, that's just kind of weird. Like, it's maybe true that they have more money to spend on advertising than you do, but whose fault is that? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't think that's a good look. I don't really think that's necessary. And by the way, like, I truly don't care. I know I've done this, like, PlayStation, Xbox thing in this video. I truly do not care about console wars, okay? But people do. Some people do. And if you really want to leave console wars alone, and I think Phil Spencer's even talked about that, and a lot of executives, right? It's like, if you really mean that, where, like, you don't want to start console wars, you don't want to put yourself in that, it's not about PlayStation versus Xbox, can we please stop having executives talk about the other side? Because if you're so serious about the console wars, that you don't want to participate in them, and I'm saying for Xbox, right? Stop mentioning PlayStation and stop making it about a console war. Because, a lot of people that see this quote, what they're going to do is make it their life for the next, like, month. I'm making a video, and then I'm going to stop there. But, like, console warriors go further, right? And it's like, it's not going to end. So can we stop? Like, and it's up to them to stop. I guess they just don't want to. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.